Welcome to the Beyond Physio podcast, where we help you move, excel, and inspire others on your journey to your next level with knowledge and advice from experts and testimonials from our like-minded community. Welcome to the Beyond Physio podcast. This morning I have Coach Rachel Bell, who is a Beachbody coach, who is an active mom, and also has a very interesting journey going from fine art to fitness. Rachel, welcome to our show.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
I'm very excited about our conversation.
Me too.
Yeah. So, Rachel, tell us a little bit about your background. I mean, you were a Philly native.
Yes.
You did pursue this other career in fine art, which led you to other things,
Yes.
which finally led you to a stint in fitness.
Yes.
Talk about that.
Yeah. And actually it's all born out of my own personal journey. So yes, I have a degree in fine art, which actually somehow landed me in technology and product development and also had a life. I am a mom of two teenagers, and we have a tendency to get very, very large when we get pregnant, all of the women in my family. And, I would say that I was active. I worked out. The routines that I would do would sort of be catch as catch can, but ultimately I felt like living in New York, walking, which is, I think super important, but also just like trying to get additional exercise in. That was how I would have described myself prior to having kids. I gained 50 plus pounds.
Wow.
50 plus pounds.
You can't even tell, by the way.
With each of my
one.
kids.
Oh, man.
And I distinctly remember my OBGYN saying, Rachel, I think you might want to consider incorporating some exercise into. And I said, I work out every day.
Oh.
And this is literally just my people. My people just get large. So 187 with each pregnancy, and was shocked that after delivering that I didn't give birth to like a second grader, like given the amount of weight that I had gained. And it's cliche, but for anybody who's gone through this, it is a struggle to, even at like 30, was very much a struggle for me to really get back to the weight that I was prior to having kids. I decided to essentially start this program with a friend of mine. She too had just recently had a baby. And so we decided to start this journey together, supporting each other. And I didn't realize that I had essentially an accountability partner.
Huge part of this.
Huge. I don't think that I would have had the sustained success had I not started with this friend of mine. And so it was really just by chance that we had started using a Beachbody program. Mm-hmm. And it was Debbie Sieber's Slim in 6. She really kicked off what would become a complete lifestyle change. And then when I figured out that I could actually become a coach and help others like myself struggling and wanting to start this journey, I jumped at the chance to do it. So, and I've been doing that now, it's about 6 years.
That's a nice time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting is that at the time that you did choose a Beachbody,
yes,
there are other competing companies out there in the fitness industry.
Yes.
What was it about going towards Beachbody that, really appealed to you the most?
Yeah. And I would say that, I had tried other programs and just other exercise routines, had gone to the gym. What I loved about this one was, I'm not a big public exerciser. I'm a little bit of a hermit, but I love the fact that it was all kind of mapped out. So you had all of the workouts on, and we joked about this, on a DVD. And if you don't know what a DVD is, please Google it. I'm sure there's
some history on that.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Absolutely. It's kind of like a CD, but with pictures. And what I loved about it was you schedule. So you knew, on day one, you're doing an upper body. On day two, you're doing a lower body. You're doing a total body, your cardio. It was all mapped out for you. So there was no excuse.
No
There was
excuse.
no excuse at all. You got up, you put your sneakers on, your tennis shoes, whatever, and you push play. And that's it. You just show up every day. You show up every day, you push play, you do the workout, and lo and behold, you are building a gradual lifestyle
Definitely
change.
lifestyle, yeah.
And so that to me was a no-brainer. Fast forward, at a certain point, they also incorporated nutrition, which I think is really important. As you know, it's important no matter your age, but I think that as you get older, it is critical that you incorporate a healthy approach to your nutrition as much as exercise. And so having both of those tied together really made it so easy to do
And be successful.
Yes.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Now, what I loved about your story is that not only did you do this for yourself, Rachel, and you had an accountability partner as well, but this now became a mission for you as you left the tech industry to pursue this, what was formerly a side hustle.
Yep.
Now becoming something that you actually wanted to take on.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about what that mission is?
Sure. And it's all born out of my own experience, but I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what works for me. And everybody is different. So it's not a one size fits all solution, but I got to a certain point where, just working at a desk job, just wasn't enough for me. It was time to think about legacy. It was time to think about what I'm kind of giving back. And as morbid as it sounds, there's a point where you're going to be taking your last breath and wondering, looking back at your life. And I wanted to be able to look back and say, yes, I did this. I helped to pay it forward. And that's really been the driver. I have a why that is related to my own personal relationship and commitment to living a healthy life full of fabulous foods, but also working out and focusing on mobility and strength. But it really is for me critical to have that connection to others and being able to help them live that life too, where they're no longer struggling. They're not beating themselves up over a number on a scale, but can I give them the tools? Can I give them the tools and even just the support based on my experience? And that really is, it's what gets me up. That's what gets me up and gets me going every day. It's just working with amazing women to just live their best lives.
That. Yeah. That really mirrors the approach that we have at Next Level, where it's not just good enough for us to help people get to that baseline of where they were before they got injured or had some sort of limitation.
Yeah.
It's really about helping them see the journey for themselves. That, listen, Rachel, you wanted to get back to this, but you have so much more living to do.
Yeah.
And having that whole person approach of like, well, I can see you doing these sort of things. Are these things that you can imagine yourself doing as well? And from our conversations, it's wow, it's exciting.
Yeah.
It's like, I never thought I could even think about those things anymore.
Yep.
And I think for me as a doctor of physical therapy, what excites me the most is seeing people really reach their potential, their next level, into a level they thought they could never get to before. And it really sounds like you're on a similar journey with your clients.
Absolutely. And I think that you've nailed something, right? It is that next level. And you and I have had conversations just about getting older and more mature. Is that the right way?
Mature is a good word.
Listen, it's a number is a number.
Number's a number.
And it really does come down to mindset. And so for me and for the women that I work with, it really is trying to figure out at that age what works for them. Where are their heads? Like that's really like,
big time.
Where is your head? You can't get to that next level if you have already made a decision in your head that like, you're not capable of doing that because you happen to be 40 or you're 50 or you're 60. Like for me, I look at 60 and I go, great. What are the amazing things that I'm going to continue to surprise myself about my own ability over the next 10 years?
I love that
right?
attitude.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
And it's important for me to make sure that the women that I'm working with are staying connected to that, that they're as excited about what they're capable of today and smashing those maybe preconceived notions of what they're capable of and continuing to do that over the next year, 2 years, 5 years.
Decade.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So
yeah, I think for me too, one of my motivations is I know of my parents, God bless them, they've been amazing people. Health and fitness was not a priority of theirs.
yeah.
And so I see the effects of it right now as they're in their 70s, and it's really affecting them to their mobility, their independence, and even their just general emotional, mental well-being, because they just can't do the things that they used to do.
Yeah.
But they also hadn't been working at those things in their 30s, 40s, or 50s for that matter. And for me, that's also a bit of a driver. Like I love my parents, but I don't want to become like that. I think I can do a lot better, and I have been, thankfully. But yeah, that's one of the things for them where like, oh, I can't change. This is where I'm at.
Right.
And so, for us, we really believe in that growth mindset where, and I think you touched upon that, where it's like, if you're just fixed in how you're thinking that this is where you are and this is your level, you're never going to see past the horizon. And that transformation that can occur which is right around the corner.
Yeah.
If you just take the steps to get there, is going to be missed.
So true. So true. And why is it that we can openly talk about setting the next generation up, our kids up to do better than we did, right? That we're, our parents killed themselves so that we could have the opportunities to take things to the next level with our career, with our, families, what have you. It should be the same for just the healthy lifestyle,
Yes.
right? I grew up in a family of smokers. I smoked for like 10 years. And I love my family, love my sister. Like they're amazing, amazing humans, but I know that I can do better. Like I can make better choices that will hopefully result in not struggling with autoimmune issues that, my family struggles with, that I'm just teeing myself up for as much longevity as possible, right?
Yeah.
Like why would you, then I'll stop. Why would you kill yourself with your career to get to a certain point where you're ready for retirement and then not have your health and your faculties there to actually be able to enjoy those years?
Tragedy right there.
It's crazy, right?
And so many people look at the golden years, when the golden years are really now.
They're totally.
And if you don't invest in yourself now, like you said, in your physical health, it ain't going to be there 30 years from now when you're retired with the wealth that you wanted to get to, per se, and those other financial goals that you've set for yourself. And by not being able to do that, you're actually spending the money maybe on your health in a bad way, like the medical expenses, surgeries, drugs, all that kind of stuff. It's just too bad. It's
preventive, right? And I think we all too often hear it's like preventive medicine. But what are you doing today that is going to really help you as you get older? And what are the things that you're doing which just doesn't serve the future you? And those things that you're doing that, aren't serving the future you, those are the things that I think are just as important in, identifying and working with clients on trying to, recognize and get to the root cause of why that person is actually engaged in that bad habit. Or it's understanding that, if you find yourself stressed out, what are the things that you find yourself doing? Are you mindlessly sort of walking into the kitchen because you happen to have your your home office downstairs and you're on a phone, and without even realizing it, you're digging into the snack drawer, or your happy hour has now become 3:30 in the afternoon because
every day
you're home.
Yes.
It's becoming mindful, right? And that's all it is. Like mindfulness is huge, and you hear it all over the place, but I really think that's the key. If you can sort of really connect with the emotion, with the movement, with the food that you're cooking, all of that I think really helps you to not just find yourself on autopilot and like hip deep in like a really bad habit.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's funny, I just had a conversation with a client this morning about, I would say that 90% of that first visit with one of our physical therapists is the awareness. Like, did you know how connected everything is? And yes, we're looking at your shoulder, Rachel, but did you realize how much your rib cage and your pelvis alignment, the pelvic alignment, really plays into this picture? And so once you bring that awareness to somebody, and they now have that taste of like, this is something I need to really be more mindful of, that's what really starts the rehab process, the recovery.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And until then, it's always been like, well, I didn't realize my posture was that bad. And like, let me show you a picture of what you look like. Oh my gosh.
Well, I've already just in the time that we've been working together, yesterday was working out and found myself going, okay, have to remember, here's how I need to be firing those muscles. This is what I need to make sure that I'm engaging in this movement. And it really, it did take things to the next level. And I like, no pun intended, but maybe pun intended, when it's challenging, you're doing something right, right? And so for me, in that particular weighted exercise that I was doing, I was sweating bullets.
Yes.
But it was because finally I was like, I am bringing everything to that movement that I would not have done prior to us working together. And I think that, not that I'm saying everybody should run out and get injured, because I'm not saying that, but I do think that people will jump at a chance to like work with a personal trainer. And listen, there is a time and place for personal trainers. The challenge there is that a lot of people who consider themselves or present themselves as, personal trainers don't necessarily have the level of knowledge and training around the whole being, right? And how all the muscles are connected. Yeah, they can talk to you about, like, is that the proper form? And maybe you should, but not necessarily how you should be bringing your whole person to that movement. And that to me is a huge game changer in terms of how our time together has already started to impact how I move.
Absolutely. And touching on that, we had talked earlier about how choosing the right physical therapist is key. And, a lot of my colleagues out there are really very, very smart and they're very knowledgeable, but I have found in my experience over the last 22 years that when you as a physical therapist also live an active lifestyle, you can actually meet the needs of the active patient, whether they're an athlete or an active or somebody who just plays sports at an older age. You don't have the same empathy or understanding unless you yourself as a physical therapist are active as well. You want to comment on that?
Yeah, I guess I would. It astounds me that there could be somebody who is trained and whose career is focused on, physical therapy and not live an active lifestyle. So that aside, I agree. I mean, it's being able to connect with the person that you're working with, to be able to kind of, again, understand where their mindset is. And as well as I do, when you can't do the things that you're used to doing, it really plays with your mind, with your emotions, and so even understanding that, being recognized as a patient, that's big, because we're kind of a little nuts. If you love, and I say that, like, those of us who have not just, live an active lifestyle, but where working out, having those moments, whether you're like your morning hike every day, it's non-negotiable,
Mhm.
right? And it's no longer just about like, hey, look at that awesome ripped arm that I have.
Mhm.
It's mental health.
Yes.
It's mental health. And when an injury is keeping you from being able to do that, it has a really cascading effect in
It's
terms
huge.
of the mental state. I'm sure some of your new patients show up in you being able to recognize that because you've been there,
Mhm.
how somebody ticks is, I think, what accelerates somebody's ability to get back out
Yeah.
there, and not just back out there, but like back
Hard.
out there better.
Exactly. Yeah. And I would say that one of the things that clients have told us in the past is like, I really just appreciate that you get where I'm coming from. And a lot of doctors have told me to just stop everything.
Oh God,
And
no.
I hear that, I get really sad because meanwhile, this person who's been a runner their whole life, that's been their identity, has been told to stop
So true.
because of XYZ. When we've trained runners of all levels and been able to get them to still maintain their general fitness, but also to be even stronger so that when we got them back ready for running, they were in a much better place overall to get back and go back really strong
Yeah, who
and
knew
set.
that you're dealing with people come in the middle of an existential crisis,
Yes.
right? Because you have a medical professional essentially robbing them of their identity without really knowing that
Yes.
that's
Mhm.
ultimately where that patient is going to file that, right?
Yeah.
But I run, and you're telling me no, I can't run anymore. Then who am
Who am
I?
I was gonna say,
Who
who
am
am
I?
I?
So
Exactly.
now your job is not just the, uh, it's not just the physical part of it. It really is that whole person. And so the emotional, who knew that you were also, psychologist, but
Yes.
it is a part of addressing that whole
Yeah.
person. I have a question for you,
Yeah.
which is, for me, stress. I store stress
Mhm.
in different places in my body. Has that come up for you as you are working with your patients, that it's not just the physical thing, but also the kind of like how one deals with stress and emotions and stores those in their body?
For sure. I think we've learned, and there's a lot of literature on this too, pointing to just how much of our mental health is tied to movement, number one, and just how much stress can play a big factor in our movement options too,
Yeah.
and our desire to do certain things. I know from my personal experience, one of the things that the first things we ask when we see somebody new is, let's go over the things that might delay your recovery.
Yeah.
And one of those things is, what is your stress level like 0 to 10? And I can tell you from the last 10 patients, well, probably a 19
Yeah.
out of 10. And so that tells me that they're always wound up. They're probably stiff as a board, just moving around because they're just feeling the weight.
Hmm.
And then whatever they're feeling physically, Rachel, is probably being magnified
Yeah.
2 or 3 times. So what you and I would think of as, let's just say, a 2 out of 10 on a pain scale, might be a 5 out of 10 because they've just created this map in their brain of everything that's going on in their lives being sort of like tied into a shoulder or an elbow issue, for
Yep.
example. And, or maybe it's a knee issue as a runner because I've told you can't run. That has caused this distress in your life. And that stress in itself has made your knee pain seem even worse.
Yeah.
So the perception of pain has actually increased. But once we can get someone to understand that, listen, there is no damage to your knee right now. There's nothing on MRI. We can start de-stressing, de-escalating that, the mental or the emotional state of that person,
Yeah.
so they can become receptive to say that, okay, I get the stress in my life can be an issue here, but I can get over this because I've been explained, someone explained to me that this is something that can be taken care of.
Yeah.
And that has got them on a different kind of path towards recovery.
And that's man, that's everything.
Yeah.
It's and you've heard it, like, sitting is the new smoking, but also like motion is lotion, motion
Yes.
is medicine.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in, granted, this, I'm now asking you questions, but how has the pandemic, because as I'm listening to you, I'm also thinking about, the amount of days
Yeah.
that people are commuting, the just the level of activity that would normally be built into your day in the office, where you're getting up and you're walking over to somebody's desk because you have a question, and it's not just from your desk to the bathroom, your desk to the kitchen, like most people who work remotely, I'm sure, are not getting nearly the amount of movement and just basic functional movement that they were prior to, prior to
pandemic and
the beginning of 2020.
Actually, it's funny. I was reading an article this morning, and I don't remember all the numbers. Forgive me, but one of the things that came up was since the pandemic, there's been a more serious global pandemic of inactivity from adults and to kids. And I can tell you from my experience working with different sports teams and clubs at the youth level, that the concern of the coaches has been, Jerry, these kids don't even know how to move. Yeah. And so it's almost like the level of athleticism has actually taken sort of a dive in the general athletic youth population. And so we're actually trying to create an initiative this coming winter with one of our teams, our soccer teams, where we're just trying to get the young kids to move and do basic things like stand on one leg, kick a ball, for crying out loud. Like, how do you do that? Like, how do you position yourself? These are just basic things that every child should be able to do at an age appropriate level. Yeah. And these are things that are not either being taught because phys ed was compromised during the pandemic, or because, at home, the life is very sedentary. Everyone's on their computers, from parents to kids. So you're right. This general thing that you and I probably took for granted growing up is no longer part of the family unit, if you will. And that's caused some general issues.
It's huge. Like, it's funny because I think that, it's not funny. It's interesting. I would have said prior to 2020 that, we at least, the conversations that I have with my kids, because they're, well in their teens, it has been around like, get off the phone, get off the computer, get outside. Growing up, and I'm going to sound like a curmudgeon.
I'm with you.
But like, you get up, you went outside, you maybe came back for lunch, you came back for dinner, and that was it. But like, you were outside all day. You were on your bike, you're running around, whatever it is. And that is just now, I feel like it really became sort of around organized activity. There wasn't this sort of like choose your own adventure type approach to just getting out and being a kid. So things that you would organically just know because you're playing stickball or whatever, that just wasn't even in the landscape. And now you've robbed what little bit of group sports, organized sports during the pandemic. And what do you have left?
Exactly.
Literally nothing. Yeah. So it pains me to hear that, but I'm glad that's top
noticed.
of mind, and it's being dealt with, because I can't imagine the long-term health issues that come along with that. And we've seen it, right? It's diabetes, it's heart disease, right? Yeah. All of that. And
absolutely.
Yeah. So not that I wanted to take this down a different route, but again, it just all comes back to how do you build the right habits? How do you build a healthy lifestyle? And just whatever I can do to help my family, myself, and my clients connect with this why, this driver, whether it's, I don't want to, I want to live a healthier life than that of my parents, or, I had a family member die because of some sort of health related condition. And so I'm going to make sure that I'm there for my kids or my grandkids, whatever that is that you can connect to get you over that hump when you don't feel like getting up and working out. That's a real primary focus for me anyway, in my practice, not just with myself, but with my clients. And boy, does that change over the years. And I think that as you get older and you're maybe a little more in touch with your mortality, it's that in some ways becomes clearer, but also we joke about the existential crises. It can sometimes be much harder to connect with.
For sure.
Especially as the landscape and I know that it's similar with men, but with women, and as we get older and metabolism changing and hormone shifting, what you did in your 20s, what you did in your 30s in terms of diet and exercise aren't necessarily going to serve you in your 40s and your 50s. So what do you need to do differently, and staying open to new things and being able to like work with the right people to get past an injury, to help you shift your mindset to just because I'm X age doesn't mean that I can't do Y. And boy, is it important to constantly be like charging after that.
Absolutely.
That like, hey, I've always wanted to do a pull-up. So why not? Why not start today training?
Exactly.
Doesn't matter if I'm 50. Like, in fact, for me, it gives me even more motivation to crush that goal,
right,
because it's kind of badass.
It is. So you talked about getting more mature.
Yes.
Which we are both going through. And so one of the things I noticed in my 40s is that my fitness has changed as far as what I do. I still go pretty hard.
Yeah.
At the same time, I also recognize that I'm not 20 anymore.
Yeah.
And in my 20s, and maybe you went through this yourself, there was no such thing as a warm-up. It's like, oh, go for a run. Okay, great. Just go and full on sprint, 7-minute mile. That was pretty much it. Or just go right into a workout. You know, some of these, some of that, a little stretching, go right into it.
Shot right out of a cannon.
Right, exactly. Right? And nowadays, I know that if I'm signing up for a class, if I don't get there like a good 10 minutes before the group warm up, I am not going to be in good shape for that workout. 100%. How's that changed for you and your clients?
Oh, I'm the same way. And absolutely, even with the women that I work with, it's doing, dynamic stretching, a 10, 15 minute warm up prior to working out is not a sign of something being wrong with you. It is I think is smart, and honestly, it's what we should be doing in our 20s and 30s to save us from injuries down the road. But I've come to really love my warm-ups before my workouts.
Same.
That's the moment where I really kind of make a decision of who's going to show up for that workout. And that's where I sort of lock in. And that's how I've tried to sort of present it to my clients is, this is the moment for you to get right, to clear your head. It's sort of, that warm-up should be seen as almost like a meditative practice.
I'm so glad you said that. I feel the same way during mine. It's like me being in touch with myself as far as like my body, like, okay, this is what feels a little stiff today. Let's spend a little more time there.
Exactly.
And that's my time to do that.
Mindfulness, if the last couple of years has taught us nothing else, understanding your mental state and recognizing the role that plays in everything that we do. It's your exercise is not just a physical thing. It is, I would say, like 70% of it is how you show up.
For sure.
and the state of mind that you're in.
Yeah. That's awesome. Coach Rachel.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming on my show.
Oh my goodness.
Or our
Thanks
show here.
for indulging me. Appreciate it.
You have a great way about you. I love this whole thing. We talked about health-esteem before the talk today and how that's so important for people out there. We're always thinking about self-esteem, but this health-esteem is also important. Can you just say one or two things about that before we close?
Absolutely. I think that is, as much as the fitness industry has really helped people live healthy, active lives, it has also come with some not so awesome aspects. And that is just around this obsession with a number, or that somehow you have to fit a certain, like you've got to be ripped, or you got to have the 6-pack abs. And every single person is different, and my genes are different from yours. How I get muscle is going to be different from how you build muscle. And so it's really about the individual person and living the healthiest lifestyle that you can mind, body, and spirit, and stop chasing a number on a scale.
Yeah.
You
That's
know?
great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. How can people get in touch with you? What's the best way to do that?
Sure. I would say Instagram's the best. It's MS Rachel, Rachel, Bell, Bell.
That's great. Those will be in the show notes too. Thank you again, Coach
Thank you.
Rachel. Until then, thank you so much for joining us on the Beyond Physio podcast. Until next time, have a great day. Thanks so much for tuning into today's episode. It really does mean a lot to us. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, or comment if you got at least one or two helpful insights or takeaways to help you get to your next level.